Everyone. I'm very glad there was a minyan today, having been short of one yesterday. Glad that you could say Kaddish. Justin Kaplan, I believe that you had a yacht site yesterday, but weren't able to be in shul, so don't have the name on the list. But for whoever it was for, I want to wish you long life and say it's very nice to see you. And talking about nice to see people, we haven't seen Stephen Tull for quite a long time. Great to have you back again from Israel. Hope is all as well. Steve, good? All good? Good. And what magnificent backgrounds we have today.
All is good, thank you.
Good. What magnificent backgrounds. Edward Black is in some magnificent library somewhere, and Brian Scheinman has given up sailing yesterday and has now positioned himself in some beautiful shul, probably one of the shuls we visited in Poland.
Exactly, Krakow.
Krakow, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that spectacular? And there's wonderful, the wonderful writing on the world, on the walls. Edward, where are you? What's the background for you?
Oh, right, it's a beautiful library.
Where?
No, I have to look it up. I've got a selection of half a dozen. I think that one's Prague.
Spectacular, isn't it? Just look at that ceiling. That's amazing. Yeah. Really great.
Oh, beautiful.
Okay, so the second Mishnah in the first chapter of Pirkei Avot, Shimon HaTzadik, was one of the last survivors of the Great Assembly, and he handed down a teaching. Of course, all of these sages would have taught many, many things, but when Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, the redactor of the Mishnah, wanted to offer us some of their teachings, he chose the ones that they would repeat most often, or teachings which in one way or another would epitomize everything which they stood for. Rabbi Shimon HaTzadik, remember, the experience of exile had a profound impact upon the thinking of the sages. They had never until then thought that would be in exile, that the Jews would be spread out across the world. Now that they realized that this could happen, they were very concerned to lay down some universal principles that would be able to bind us and hold us together wherever we would be in the world. And they were really setting down the foundations for the diaspora that would follow after the destruction of the Second Temple. The services that we're running today, the Amidah, for example, is a perfect example of it. You know, it's held us together, even with some very small variations between different groups of Jews, you know, for centuries. It's you walk into any Ashkenazi shul, you'll hear the same prayers, you'll hear very often the same tunes, etc. Similar for Sephardim, and even between Sephardim and Ashkenazim, there are very minor differences actually in the text of the prayers. Even the tunes might be very different. So Shimon HaTzadik was concerned to lay down principles that would be the fundamental principles of Judaism. And what he said was that the world stands al shlosha davarim ha'olam omed. The world stands on three things: al haTorah, on Torah, val ha'avodah, and on prayer, val gimulut chasadim, and on acts of loving kindness. Any one of these on their own would not suffice. Any two of them on their own would not suffice. There has to be all three in order for there to be a balanced Judaism. Interestingly, the author of this book, Bunim, that I'm reading from Ethics from Sinai, says that these three principles of here map onto the Rosh Hashanah service, when we say that Teshuvah, Tefillah, and Tzedakah, Ma'avir and Ruach Gezerah, Teshuvah, repentance, Tefillah, prayer, and charity will avert the evil decree. That's part of the key part of the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur services. And he says that corresponds to these three principles over here. Teshuvah, repentance, comes about when one has a moral sense, and a moral sense comes about as a result of Torah. And when you stray from that moral compass, you feel a sense that you need to come back again, and that is teshuvah. Prayer and charity map on very easily. Then he gives us, just for those of you in the Daily Minion, I'm sure will like a little bit of gematria. Gematria is when you look at numerical equivalents, and he makes a very interesting point. In the prayer of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, above these three words, Teshuvah, Tefillah, and Tzedakah, you have, in little writing, you have above the word Teshuvah, you have the word Tzom, fasting. Above the word Tefillah, you have the word Kol, which means voice, because you pray with a voice. And above the word Tzedakah, you have the word Mammon, which means money. Now, Bunyan points out that each one of these three words consists of 136 letters. And any two of them will make 272, and all three of them together make up 408. What is the significance of that? Because there is a verse that King David says in Psalms that a man of brutish instincts, a ba'ar, who does not know, and a fool will not comprehend zot, this. He says the numerical value of the word ba'ar, a brutish person, is 272. The numerical value of zot is 408. So what does this mean? It means that any person who takes only two of these and ignores the third one is considered to be an ignorant person. Any person who denies all three of them is considered to be a fool, because the numbers equate. Therefore, any person who says, you know what, I can be a perfectly good Jew just by being a charitable person and doing kindness to others, in other words, taking the one leg of the tripod, Gimut Chesed, being kindness, etc., and I don't need the other two because I'm a good person, is categorized over here as somebody who has misunderstood the whole concept of Judaism. He is either a ba'ar or a fool or an ignoramus. You have to have a balanced Judaism, means that there has to be all three of these. And we'll look at that a little bit later with our onliners. But for the moment, wish you all Shabbat Shalom.